part of me was like a little skeptical for some reason going into this screening of Being John Malkovich, because I was wondering how it was going to hold up. Because the theme of 1999, one of the themes of 1999 is blank checks for the crazy auteur-minded writers and directors that give you in 1999, baby, they will give you a big budget and they want you to go out there and do some crazy hijinks to get the kids all excited. And so that has varying results, and so I was like, is Being John Malkovich going to hold up?
Right.
Is it maybe going to?
And we were just coming off Fight Club, which we misremembered and
Right.
then had to re-contend with. You know, right?
So I was like, how is this going to play? How
Right.
is this, And for the first like 5-10 minutes, I was kind of on the fence. I was like, okay, it's a little like sort of heavy-handed here or there, or it's a little heavy with like, because you're getting hit with a lot early on. You're getting hit with like, much like Fight Club, you're getting hit with like puppets, and there's animals in the house, and
that like the music is the classical orchestra, so it's the movie immediately is saying like, look at grandeur, look at
that's it.
Look at intelligence. It's sort of like a way you can interpret sort of the opening.
Yes, and it has the Rushmore opening where you start with like the theater curtains
It
parting.
does.
And
it
so
does.
I was like,
that raised my eyebrow as well.
You know what? Because I think it was like, because I was like, oh, that's what Rushmore did too. So I will say in the first 5 minutes there was a couple little what I thought were red flags, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm not going to like this as much as I used to.
What happened?
Well, Joe, I could not have been more wrong.
Whoa!
Because here is one thing, the main thing, the central thing that I underestimated or kind of forgot about Being John Malkovich, which is this is one of the funniest movies of all time. This movie is so freaking funny. I can't even take it. I was cracking up start to finish, and not like sort of high intellectual laughs or like haha. I was cracking up. This movie is so freaking funny at every level. And part of that, I had forgotten how funny Cameron Diaz was in this movie.
Yep.
Cusack late 90s is going to bring it. I will never, for until my dying day, and probably even extending after my death, I will never forget how smoking hot and cool and funny Catherine Keener is. That is burned into my mind.
Ditto.
I remember Malkovich just being like giving it 100%, which we love Malkovich for. I had not remembered that Cameron Diaz is so funny in this movie, and I would argue is kind of the secret weapon of the movie, because the movie when John Cusack goes to work for the first time at the new job, right? This crazy office that's on the 7.5 floor, and they have to, you remember this, they have to pry open the elevator, and he has to get off and like crawl into this little sort of in-between floor. And John Cusack really quickly is an aspiring puppeteer that's very important for this movie. He thinks the world doesn't appreciate him, and he's jealous of this really famous puppeteer. And Cameron Diaz looks after animals, and then finally it's like, all right, buddy, you got to go get a job. So he gets the weirdest job in the world, working on this like half floor of an office building, and he's like filing, because he's really good with his fingers as a puppeteer. So he's filing paperwork, and he works for some absolute crazy people that are so fun. Orson Bean is the boss. Mary Kay Place is the sort of the boss.
Andrew Breitbart's father-in-law, Orson Bean.
Is that the case?
Yeah, Orson Bean was the one that told Andrew Breitbart to start listening to Rush Limbaugh.
Wow. I'm going to choose to forget that, because he's so funny.
No, he is
mind-bogglingly funny in this movie.
He's conservative.
Look, people are people.
Whatever.
This is a performance.
Hollywood,
it's a movie.
so
Yes,
he's
right.
conservative.
Yeah.
Right.
Secretly conservative.
Yeah, it's a conservative
since
town,
its
guys.
inception.
Right. Sorry, I totally threw you off, but I had to throw that out there.
It's okay. It's fine.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
Orson Bean is
in this,
Andrew
and then
Breitbart's
look very quickly. You all know the plot of this movie, but in like a secret behind a file cabinet part of this office, he finds a portal into John Malkovich's brain. They start selling tickets. People love it. They get addicted to it like a drug. They can be inside John Malkovich's brain for 30 minutes. Then you get tossed down the side of the New Jersey Turnpike. But John Cusack, because he's a puppeteer, realizes that he can start controlling Malkovich when he's inside Malkovich's brain, and he basically starts controlling Malkovich like a puppet. makes Malkovich switch careers, become a puppeteer instead of an actor, becomes a hugely successful puppeteer. As John Malkovich marries Catherine Keener, who he's obsessed with, leaves Cameron Diaz behind, his ex-wife. But meanwhile, Cameron Diaz joins forces with the boss Orson Bean and this group of like Cocoon-esque elderly people that have all gathered together, and they're gonna make a permanent home inside Malkovich. So they're gonna come in and like kick John Cusack out, and they're gonna make a permanent home inside John Malkovich. Look, it's a fantastic fucking movie. You all know it. You all love it. I loved it even more on this second watch because I cannot say it enough. This movie is so funny at every level. It's funny at just the level of like joke. It's funny at the level of like character choices. It's funny at the big conceptual level when they do things like a documentary about John Malkovich's rise to the top of the puppeteering pyramid. They do a little documentary about that in the movie. Every level from the simple to the one-liner to the meta joke, high concept joke, everything is funny, and again, never at like a chuckle haha performative laughter level. Funny with a capital fucking F, funny.
And not just situationally, like jokes as well, like scenes where they're doing jokes on purpose.
That's
and it's
right.
very, very funny.
And the reason I think that Cameron Diaz, because I was like, where do I even like, I could talk about this movie for fucking like 2 hours, but we got 3 movies to get through, so I was like, what do I really want to like point out about this movie? And I really want to highlight Cameron Diaz's performance, because not only is it super funny, it really is the linchpin of the whole movie. Because where the movie really like starts to like not just be funny and great and weird, but really starts to like work in a way that I'm like on the edge of my seat and I'm following it like it's a fucking like tense love triangle, is when they introduced the gag of being inside John Malkovich's head. And I'm sure this was just a joke Charlie Kaufman thought of and was like, aha, that's funny. But how do I turn it into a movie? Well, you have your 3 leads engage in this insane power struggle over who is the one who like is controlling Malkovich, and how are they using Malkovich? Because Cameron Diaz, the character who was presented as very sort of like mousy and introverted and sort of in a way kind of subservient to her husband John Cusack. She kind of lets
she's very demure.
Yeah, she lets him sort of
agreeable,
lay around.
Right.
And just do whatever he wants, and then like gently nudges him to get a job. The first time she goes into John Malkovich's head, she is transformed. She comes out a different person, saying things like, I was inside John fucking Malkovich. Like, she's full of like power and adrenaline and this crazy rush. And then you find out that she is unlocked this thing in her mind, and she realizes, and look, this is 1999. I don't know if Kaufman really knew quite how to play out this theme in sort of a persuasive or interesting way, but she finds out that she realizes she's trans after she goes into John Malkovich's head, because she loves the feeling of like being a man, and it unlocks this new authenticity within her.
I think it worked great.
It works great. It just is not like, it's a little sort of like dropped as a plot point. It's not entirely sort of carried through.
I think it's kind of like she discovers that there's like other parts of her sexuality, and in her sort of enthusiasm and excitement and shock, she goes for broke with the trans identity, and then she sort of finds herself more and more as the movie plays out.
I thought it was remarkably well handled for 1999.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yes, yeah. I think maybe like if you did it now, there'd be maybe a couple different beats to it, but she like comes out like having found herself for the first time, and she is on fire. And then another part of it is Catherine Keener then starts meeting up with John Malkovich in real life, and then essentially like Cameron Diaz in John Malkovich's brain starts like fucking Catherine Keener, and they're both so into it.
And Keener knows she's in there.
Yes,
and once
Catherine Keener can only fuck John Malkovich when she knows Cameron Diaz is inside Malkovich's head, because she says there's something about sort of sensing this for Catherine Keener, a feminine presence, even though Cameron Diaz is, and see, that's where it's like kind of, but also like it's presented as just like everyone is in this intoxicating first rush of this experience, and so everyone's just sort of talking out loud and trying to figure it out. Exactly.
Bizarre.
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially Cameron Diaz in Malkovich and Catherine Keener start this affair, and then Cusack is jealous, but then Cusack sort of Cusack literally locks Cameron Diaz in a cage so that he can go be in Malkovich's head and fuck Catherine Keener. And then she starts to side with Cusack because she realizes that he can control Malkovich. So this power struggle love triangle is where Kaufman sort of discovers the point of his big joke. He discovers the purpose of the Malkovich inside Malkovich's head joke. And from that point on, the movie plays out. I've never seen a movie play out an insane premise better and in a more compelling way, because he's not just satisfied being like, haha, this funny joke I thought of, and then I might like leave it and do another funny joke, and then, oh, look, now we're in Danny DeVito's head. Ha ha ha. No, he's like, okay, what if this really happens? How would these people respond to it? What would be the ensuing sort of power struggles and dynamics? And he plays it out so convincingly. And for all of the sort of like sexy power of Catherine Keener's performance and just the sniveling, pathetic, just awfulness of John Cusack's performance, and he is so good as that Craig, as that character.
They're all awesome.
For all of that, Cameron Diaz is really the one sort of she's in the middle of the love triangle in a way, and she's the one kind of rooting it and sort of and providing like this different sort of tone, because like Keener and Cusack are just sort of killers.
They're detestable, and she's lovely.
She's not,
right?
And so she kind of becomes the hero of the movie, because even though she is also just like going into Malkovich's head without like without his consent or permission, she is like discovering things about herself that are sort of beautiful and empowering and enlightening, and they are just both Keener and Cusack are both just trying to turn it into this game of sort of sex and power and like domination and exploitation. But yeah, I was just like, it is one of the funniest movies of all time. I think without question. It hit, and I was not expecting that to be my response, but it truly is one of the funniest movies of all time. And it is also just one of the best examples of how to do high concept comedy, how to like take your own insane sort of premises seriously and not do these things where you sort of are sabotaging them because you don't know what to do with them and you don't know how to turn them into a real sort of drama or a real movie. And the movie never ceases being insane. It just ratchets up the insanity higher and higher. But there's also this other dynamic of like real sort of human experience and real sort of human sort of emotions, and there's like almost like a psychological realism to the way that they're all dealing with this experience in their own ways. I just was it's no surprise, not a hot take, but man, was I blown away by Being John Malkovich.
I kind of want to build upon all of the weird elements that Brett outlined. I just want to compliment Charlie Kaufman, the writer, and Spike Jonze, the director, for earning every single bit of it. So often people want to do something kooky, outlandish, strange, or weird, and it doesn't really work because it doesn't feel earned, or it feels like they jumped the shark. This thing is put together insanely well because it starts out with, Cusack, and he is odd, and he is ugly, and he is crazy, and he has a weird dynamic with his wife who he's kind of mean to. He's obsessed with puppeteering. He's like a lame weirdo, and from there it all builds, and he makes sure in the first 30 minutes in Act 1 to make sure you kind of get all these different elements before we get to the big reveal of what the movie's about, where you can go in through a portal into John Malkovich's head, where we learn about the characters really nicely, and then we kind of learn about different tones and textures. We start getting sort of a vaudeville routine when he gets to the 7.5 floor. That's kind of weird. Then we meet Catherine Keener, and she brings a different kind of comedy and sort of sexuality to the stuff, and it all builds really nicely, and all the characters feel heightened, so that when you get swamped into John Malkovich's head, you aren't like, wait, what? It all feels very of a piece. And then, like Brett was saying, all of the choices that continue really are earned, and they work comedically and they work dramatically because we have understood John Cusack's character is not a good man. So when he puts Cameron Diaz in a cage to go back to have secret sex with Catherine Keener via John Malkovich, we totally believe it. And when we learn that Catherine Keener likes it, that John Cusack, who was a version of raping her in John Malkovich, when she likes that he can puppeteer him and be in him and become him, she bails on Cameron Diaz and goes for that, and that feels earned too. It was the continually heightened weirdness that always pays off, always lands comedically and dramatically and thematically. I love this movie's kind of take on this cult of celebrity, consumerism, and also, late 90s sexuality and desire and sort of the interplay of that. It's also a lot of great 90s stuff ordering out of a catalog. I was like, oh yeah, remember that? Like there was just like a lot of like details that really like 1999 to this, which I know we're all turned up on this podcast because that's what we're doing here. And this movie's influence is felt all the time. Like I was thinking a lot about sort of the Safdie brothers' work and how they were, inspired by this in their ways. Not like they're pulling from this movie. I know, I get them. They're pulling from Bicycle Thieves and stuff, right? But there's no way that when they were coming up and this movie came out, they both didn't go gaga over it. I think a lot of really smart, sharp people really were influenced and impacted by this film. There's a gag in it where a monkey has a flashback and talks to his people, and it really reminded me of the gag in Anchorman when the little tiny dog, Baxter, talks to the bears. And I'm not saying that Adam McKay took it in any way. I'm just saying that I bet Adam McKay like Being John Malkovich too. I see so much of like the alt comedy punk ethos scene that I kind of was lucky enough to come up in and spend time in, really was all sort of there bubbling and Being John Malkovich. It was this really cool like meta text leading to the 2000s alt comedy boom. Big fan of this movie, loved the performances, loved the camera work because it was so refined, and it's like we're not going to blow you out of the water with the camera work because we're going to put you in John Malkovich's head. It like steadied hand. Likewise with the score like constantly was hitting these sort of flat notes that sort of suggested the criticism that Spike Jonze had of John Cusack's character, which was so unavailable in Fight Club, where Edward Norton's character, the sad boy of Fight Club, he was sort of championed by that score and by that story, and the criticism Spike Jonze levels upon Cusack and his kind, and then damning him for the rest of time to live inside the head of a baby without being able to puppeteer it, the daughter of Catherine Keener and Cameron Diaz, and live in that sort of purgatory, is a funny and earned button for such a sad loser character. Funny, great stuff, totally blown away. Forgot how good this movie was.